Oh no, here we go. Okay, welcome everyone to our live stream show where we showcase amazing Australian women speakers so you get to see the huge amount of talent available, and so we can shift the stats from 30% women speakers at events to 50%. Joining me today is the marvellous Robyn Walker, speaker, facilitator, TV host of Developing Human Synergy by understanding people's learning, communication and leadership styles. End result? Healthier, more collaborative workplaces and communities. And Robyn believes that when people are inspired to tap into their true potential, they automatically increase personal performance and business productivity. Welcome to the show, Robyn, and it is an absolute delight to have you.
And thank you. It's also a delight to be on it. Thank you, Rachel.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. I'm so stoked to have you today. You have got such a huge history of working with people, of being in front of audiences, and I can imagine that you have so many stories to tell, but we only have 25 minutes today, so we have to be very, very picky about what we share today. So, Robyn, can you tell us what you're all about at this point in time?
Oh dear, isn't that a big question? I often say that when someone asks that sort of question, it's like, all righty. Well, as you said in the intro, developing human synergy. And I guess for me, that's what this is all about. We live in a world now where instantaneously we can see people pretty much anywhere on the planet. We can hear what's going on. And people often go, well, what's synergy? And synergy is made up of two words, synchronized energy. So basically it means 1 + 1 = 3. The sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. So when we start moving onto the same page, so to speak, then we're able to create a lot more harmoniously, and in a way that just honors everyone. Doesn't mean we don't have differences, but we don't let the differences divide us. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. It's like we can be individuals, but we also recognize that we're part of a bigger picture, and we all have our roles to play, and those roles complement each other to better everyone. Would that be a fair? Yeah. Wow. What got you into this?
I guess going back a few decades now, I've always been interested in who we are as people, in human behavior.
Yep.
And even as a kid, I was always fascinated.
Yeah.
I always thought I'd be a writer, and not be seen and heard, and I could make a difference by, hiding behind a typewriter.
Yep.
I often use that saying that when we take the first step, we're given the next 9. And ultimately, I let go of a successful advertising career, sold my Sydney home at the time, and that's going back like 40 years now. Wow. And ended up on a journey in Queensland where I started working at the Hyatt Regency at Coolum in their outdoor experiential corporate leadership program. So for 5 years, I was trained to be seen and heard.
Wow. And so your experiences working with people got you thinking even deeper about human behavior and how we work together and how we can do that more harmoniously.
Yeah, because in the last 30 years, and I use the line professionally, from the boardroom to the jailhouse and most points in between. Right. I've been very, very blessed to work with, corporate, government, community orgs, through to some of our most vulnerable kids at risk. I've taken my trainings into women's jails. I've worked with men who have been charged with domestic abuse, and with women who have experienced domestic abuse, suicide prevention. So in all those various University of Life training areas, that's where I ended up developing the first of my philosophies. In other words, if we knew better, we would do better.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful saying, and there's some debate whether it's Socrates or Aristotle that said it, but it goes something like, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom.
Yes, I love
Yeah?
that. Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that gorgeous?
I love that. I love that. And, I don't think that we get a lot of opportunity to know ourselves. I think we live in such a fast-paced society. Plus, there's so much comparison to other people and what they're doing, and so much is pulling at us.
Yes.
So, do you address that in your training with people? Because it must be a hard thing to isolate yourself down to, hang on, this is me. This is not anyone else. How do you guide people into doing that?
Well, I guess part of it is because they're my second philosophy, which came, through the years of training at the various coal faces of human behaviour, is we're all born with innate wisdom. Our Indigenous people have known this for millennium.
Wow.
And that's why I'm very big at separating person from behaviour. So in answering that question, for me, connect, converse, create. When we authentically connect in here, with who we are, warts and all, because none of us is perfect.
No.
Yeah? None of us is perfect. We all do screw up.
Yeah.
But it's all about not wallowing in it. It's about not being caught up in the traumas of the past. And I know this is sounding simplistically, and I do not mean to denigrate anyone's experience.
Yeah.
But the reality is, as long as we're caught up in our trauma, we're not in the present moment where we can make more conscious choices. And that, to me, is where this whole thing about becoming more of a village again.
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, because we don't realize how much the echoes of trauma can inform the decisions that we make now and keep us isolated.
Absolutely. And we know now about generational trauma. That, what happened 3, 4, 5 generations back has an effect.
Yeah.
The Hopi Indians, one of their favorite sayings is, as we heal ourselves, we heal 5 generations back.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Some so beautiful sayings. And I know, there's a lot of adult children out there, and some of their language around their parents. And it's almost like, well, hang on, pull back a wee bit. Firstly, look at the languaging you're using, because we now know whatever we're saying about another person, it's part of our limbic brain that doesn't differentiate. So that part of the limbic brain thinks we're saying it about ourselves. So firstly, be very careful of languaging.
Right.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I'm curious to know more.
Well, have you heard of Dr. Emoto?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Dr. Emoto, he so many amazing people out there. He did a lot of experiments over the years, and basically words have energy.
Yeah.
And because we're made up predominantly of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did experiments that when you used positive words, the water molecules would just turn into these magnificent pictures of water molecules, and sparkly and bright. But when we use really negative, dark languaging, they just turned all yucky.
Oh, my Lord.
But doesn't it make sense? Because
yes,
you know yourself, if you're saying, when we're caught up in angry thoughts, I mean, for me, it's in my stomach. My stomach goes into knots. Where does it happen for you?
The same, actually. And I feel my throat constrict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet when we're using positive languaging, it's like our whole vibration just opens up. And I know for some people that can go, oh, it's a bit woo-woo, or, we can't always be positive. Absolutely agree. It's not, we're not meant to be always positive. We don't learn if we don't have challenges.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's how we hold that energy within ourselves, because when we're connecting in here authentically, then we're able to have those more authentic conversations with other people, our families, our teammates, in our workplaces. And then we can get on the same page. And then, because that's the third part of connect, converse, create, then we can create in unison and in synergy. So we're all on that same page. Doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen and we kind of move off the the pathway again, but it's learning how to come back onto that pathway.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
Yep, we are. Absolutely. And I
Mm.
can imagine that, you know, once you do embrace that space and allow that positive energy to do its, you know, to do its work, the things that we would be concerned about or anxious about tend, not everything, but there would be certain things that we wouldn't be anxious about anymore, and we can be left thinking, oh, why was I worried about that?
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, and it makes me think, you know, every time I'm anxious, that, you know, it just makes me think, just stop and go, why am I anxious about this? Is this really reality? And does it, you know, does it serve me to be
Yes.
anxious?
Yes.
And I'm learning stuff here, Robyn. This is awesome. I'm curious to know, how do your audiences take this? Because you have so many people, so many different, diverse audiences, and I can imagine that what you're saying would land differently with different types of people or different groups of people, or does it just land the same with everyone because we're all human?
Yes and no. And yes, we're definitely all human.
Mm,
It, like, for example, in March, I was on in Brisbane,
yeah.
and I was talking at a menopause summit. And so my talk, I called it Embracing Our Wise Woman Wisdom. And then last month, I was talking at the Healthy Aging Summit on the Gold Coast. And I called that Embracing Our Eldership Wisdom to be the change to change the world. So you know, it's like anything, depending on the audience, depends on, I guess, what I'd call the talks. It also would depend on part of the delivery, but then the essence is still the same. I just would be using different examples, different sayings, different scenarios. But the bottom line is, I believe from all my years of, you know, the coal face, is if we knew better, we would do better, because we are all born with innate wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a fundamental thing. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're born, what you're born into, what society you grow up in. We all have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And we all do screw up.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's that whole, you know, they say when you point the finger at someone, you got the 4 fingers coming back at you. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yes. I haven't actually. That's a good reminder. Really good reminder. You
Yeah.
have to be very slow in pointing the finger. Yes.
Think twice.
Yes, very
Yeah.
slow. Inevitably, it comes back at us. I think that's how karma works. But you know, we can call it whatever. If it comes back at you, then you know there's something to investigate there.
Mm.
But has there been an audience where you feel like your message has really resonated with, like you feel like you've made the biggest impact?
I must admit, I was very chuffed. I was coming out of the lift on the second day of the Healthy Aging Summit on the Gold Coast last month, because I spoke on day one, and I was coming out of the lift on the morning of day two, and a woman walked up to me and she just said, "Robyn, thank you so much for your talk yesterday."
Yeah.
She said, "I wish there were more people in the audience that could have heard this, because what you were talking about, the healthy aging industry, it would be great for them to hear this." Because I was talking about, you know, our languaging,
Yeah.
because we often see people when they've had, you know, a number of decades around the sun, we call them elderly. We
Yes.
don't think they have anything to offer.
Yeah.
Whereas the eldership wisdom, you know, you talk about men's business, women's business, eldership, yet
Mm.
again, our Indigenous people. So I was talking around that and
Yeah.
our innate wisdom. And yeah, so it was just like, I just felt so humbled that,
Mm.
like, it made sense for someone, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes, it landed and it impacted
Thank you.
someone. Yes,
Yeah, it
absolutely
landed.
landed. And I think of, you know, just the way society is constructed these days, that, you know, the message comes across loud and clear that the older we get, the less we're needed. And it's just, it's a scary thought. But at the same time, you know, I don't I don't feel any. Oh look, I turned 50 last year, and I don't feel like I'm anywhere close to done yet. So nowhere near it.
Yeah.
But this
Yeah.
little fear that sits there that someone's going to label me as not not necessary. And but I'm thinking it's taken me all these years to gain my experience, and I've actually got more to offer now. So it doesn't make sense to put people on the shelf before their time and to put them in that basket. So yeah, I think it's an important message to inspire people to keep going and to fight that mentality.
Well, I guess also it's up to us, if someone says something negative to us, it's up to us how we hold that. And again, that's where the connect with self first, because we can either react,
Yeah,
we can take a deep breath and just basically go, what's going on for them?
yeah,
Because I'm very big at separating person from behavior, and I talk about this a lot within training rooms or when I do talks. Person's always okay. Behavior can suck, technical term. Behavior's learnt.
yeah,
And in a safe, supportive environment, and I've seen this happen over and over and over again in my own experience as a facilitator.
yeah,
Because we never know what happened to that person as a teeny, helpless, innocent
yeah,
baby. What happened that they then shut down and grow up to do such atrocious behavior? I mean, you just got to look at some of the leaders in the world at the moment.
yeah,
And I often step back and go, what's happened to them that they're so disconnected from here?
yeah,
I mean, they often say that, I'll use the we.
yeah, yeah,
We send young men off to war to kill other young men they don't know.
yeah.
And you just go,
That's crazy. Yeah, yeah. What led to this?
exactly what led to this.
Yeah,
So yes, and at the end of the day, regardless of what happens out there, it's how do we hold it? There's another beautiful saying, inner peace begins the moment we choose not to allow another person or event to control our emotions.
oh yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Really.
Easier said than done, believe you me, I know that.
We are human.
Or that other one, the person that presses your buttons the most is your greatest teacher.
Oh yes. Oh, that's a hard one.
And sometimes you want to go, what the?
Exactly.
It's like breathe, breathe.
But it's interesting how you point right to the loving, nurturing environment, because I remember seeing a documentary about a scientist who was a leader in his field studying the brain um, of psychopathic killers, and to see what had changed in the cells of their brains and whatnot. And as part of his experimenting, he actually went under some tests. He actually took some tests of his own brain, and his brain resembled exactly the same format as these psycho killers. And he's like, well, what's the difference? And the difference was he grew up in a very, very loving home. He had the tendencies, but he didn't have the shutting down or the frustrations. He was able to follow his dream and live a healthy life. And his friends and family say, yeah, he can be a little bit of a narcissist at times, or he can be a little bit short or whatever. That's his personality. But his buttons weren't pushed, so he had the ability or the opportunity to turn that into something wonderful. I just think that's such an amazing turn of events. He was in the right place at the right time and had the right nurturing.
Nature nurture, not rocket science.
Yeah, exactly.
A number of years ago, because I had a show on community TV, Conversations with Robyn, going back a bit. And some of the filmings we did, we took around 10 young people camping for 5 days.
All right.
And one of the young men, who was around 21 at the time, he actually grew up in a country where he was trained at the age of 10 to be a boy soldier.
No.
He was trained to kill anyone who wasn't part of his culture or religion.
Oh,
Now, can you imagine what that does to a 10-year-old?
mm.
Yeah. And then when he came to Australia, he had to undergo so much in how to almost deprogram himself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was taken back by the just how he was received and supported and cared for.
Mm.
And he just looked at the world in a whole different way.
Wow.
It was amazing hearing his story.
Wow. Wow. He would be so grateful now.
Mm.
So grateful for to be able to have that experience.
Mm.
Yeah. To be able to
And he taught all of us, in that 5 days. And the other young people were fascinating hearing his stories, as I was, and as were the other adults. We're like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incomprehensible. Like, we are so lucky here in Australia.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. I digress. I could listen to your stories all day, Robyn. What was I going to ask next? The other thing I wanted to ask you was, there's been a memorable experience that you've had. Is there like I guess the biggest word of advice that you would have for people? I mean, you've already gone through and I think you've mentioned that, but is there one thing that people seem to say to you, this is what hit me the most?
I honestly feel from my experiences that people, when they start to become more conscious of their behavior and therefore their past choices, they become shocked at some of the behavior and the things that they did in the past. And I know for myself as a human, it's that whole thing, if we knew better, we would have done better. It's not condoning the behavior, but it's definitely not to keep blaming, punishing the person, because more blame, more punishment, shut down, and who's going to get affected? We either divert it to others or we self-harm.
Yeah.
Again, not rocket science. So I guess that's the thing, that people start to become more conscious, and they almost go, wow, how was it that I used to think that way? And that's when I'd also make sure that I would say, and now you've got to be really gentle to not be judging yourself.
Yeah.
And to remember, again, if you had, as I said, it's not condoning the behavior. And yes, people need to go back and apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's almost like the 5 steps program when someone has had an alcohol problem.
Yeah.
So absolutely go back and apologize, because that also frees up in here. We're not carrying it.
Yeah. Yes. It's like the poison. It doesn't have a chance to set.
No.
Yes. No. I don't need this. I don't need this darkness. I don't need this to poison me. Yeah. That's interesting. Yes, because we can point the finger or have the finger pointed to us, and it would have the same effect if we were pointing the finger to ourselves, or if we were pointing the finger to someone else, or it all has the same effect. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I believe it is.
Yeah.
There may be experts out there would say, Robyn, what do you know? You're not I'm a University of Life kid.
Yeah.
So I'm not a left brain researcher per se, but my research has absolutely been at the coalface within it all. I mean, I've had men in my training rooms who have taken someone's life. I've had women that have been sadly raped. There was a young man that was hugely depressed, because I've worked a lot with people long-term unemployed as well. And if they didn't come to the trainings, they would lose their benefits. And, it's always fascinating. And thank goodness a lot of the managers of the organizations that I did the trainings with, I could actually negotiate with them to say, look, please allow me to manage with some of the people if they can't be here the whole day because it's too stressful.
Yeah.
because as a contractor, I contracted, and I would be paid by the number of people in the room, and if they stayed for the majority of the 5, 10 or whatever days it was over 2 or 3 weeks. So I was able to negotiate to say, look, I'm not going to charge for this person. Let me manage with them.
Yeah.
And I found that when the managers let me do that, this person, and with the support of the whole group, because we're very honest and open in our groups to say, do we have an agreement here? This person, the rest of you are going to come all the time. But this person, you've heard their story. Are you okay that when they've had too much, they can leave?
Yeah.
You'll hold the space. And you know what? And that's why I know that if we knew better, we would do better. We all have innate wisdom, because I've seen it over and over again with people in training rooms that have been some of the most traumatized, and yet they've held the space for others and therefore for themselves. Brings tears to your eyes. There are many times my eyes would get.
That's pretty special. That's really powerful. Yeah, really, really powerful. It's like the beautiful part of human nature at its best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's why I love what I do. It's just,
I bet.
We're amazing.
So, Robyn, if people wanted to find you and book your services, because, I'm sure people are climbing over each other too, where can they find you?
Probably best one is the website, robynwalker.net. That's Robyn with a Y, ROBYN Walker.net. My LinkedIn page.
Yep.
Australian Women Speakers. I have a profile. Go to thewomenspeakers.com.au. I have a profile on there, so my details are there as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. And you have a couple of books out as well. Did you want to mention those?
I have.
Sorry, I
the head around. Well, this was the first one, Born to Fly.
Oh wow.
This is based on a true life story of releasing caged birds back into freedom.
Oh wow.
So it's part fiction, part fact.
Yep.
In some ways a kid's story, but there are layers within layers. So, and then this is the one, Being a Wise Leader, that I wrote a few years back during COVID. I'd threatened to write it for a lot of years, so that happened. And it's pretty much how I ultimately started creating and working with what I call the 4 wise leadership styles.
Right.
So that's the journey as a facilitator and how that happened. And I've been over the years, doing the registered trademark for all those. And because at the end of the day, I believe we're all leaders in our own unique way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Unique is also part of that picture, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Robyn. It has been an absolute delight having you on, and I'm sure everyone is going to enjoy listening to hearing you speak, and I wish you well for the future. So,
thank you, Rachel. And by the way, I love your interviewing style.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that means so much coming from you, Robyn, honestly.
Seriously.
Thank you. Well, I hope everyone out there has enjoyed this interview. I'm sure you have. This show goes live every Thursday at 11 a.m. on YouTube, and will be uploaded straight to LinkedIn and Facebook. If you need a speaker, then please go to womenspeakers.com.au, and you don't have to pay a commission. You can contact your preferred speaker directly, and you can search by topic and location. You are also welcome to post a request into our Facebook and LinkedIn groups called Australian Women Speakers. And if you are a speaker or want to be, sign up to our directory and get found. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Rachel Pietsch. Have a great day.